So there's some type of fungus called, I think it's bleeding tooth fungus. And it's white with these like red, blood red dots on it, and it looks horrific. And someone shared this on Facebook, and there was a comment that struck me. And the lady said, "What was Mother Nature thinking when she made this?" And of course, like, the nature of thought itself is really funny when you think that Mother Nature thinks, and so she makes things. I mean, not that it's wrong to say that, but that it's kind of hilarious. But the greater sort of lesson that it brings out is how we can project ourselves onto species that aren't even us. Like, we can project that something is wounded or something is hurt or it might be a threat to us or like that. We can feel that discomfort because of this assumed sense of separation, because of this belief that we are the body separate from the world. And so when we look at something like that and we know that it's not scary, just like the Halloween mask, it's plastic, but still there's that sense of fear. This can be very enjoyable and very fun to people because it is a kind of healing, and we're working through that fear, and we're kind of like, we can see that fear, just like the roller coaster. We know we're safe. There's not a complete guarantee, but we know we're safe. And so you almost get to observe your fear, and you, in that observation, have to merge with that observation and become very, very present. Just like downhill skiing down a really narrow trail, you have to focus on where you're going. And so fear itself is unwanted. That's all fear is. It's unwanted. It's extreme unwanted. And so then that focus upon it is what results in that emotion that is guiding us to focus on what's wanted. And so if you were in a situation where you really needed your, that's a funny statement, wits about you, or you really need adrenaline, you get that adrenaline. But the more that you become paralyzed or frozen with fear, the less that you focus on what you want, the more dangerous that situation becomes. And so fear misunderstood as guidance is the most dangerous thing. And so those quotes, "the only thing we have to fear is fear itself," is so, so true. With that said, it's guidance. If you feel fear, we sometimes have this tendency to come back and be like, "Oh no, I felt this intense emotion. That's really bad." Or sometimes I see people, because I suggest using the emotional scale so frequently, I see people wanting to believe that they're higher up on the scale than they actually are because they don't want so far to climb. But it's not like a ladder that you're climbing. It just shows you, and it breaks that this is why I'm afraid. This is a very good reason why I'm afraid, and shows that it's the guidance, and so you can go directly to the feeling of it. But to utterly simplify things, fear is only focused on what's not wanted. And so often fear can manifest higher on the emotional scale as worry, for example. And that's not quite the raw experience of fear, but it can be even worse because it can be something that we entertain quite a lot. And so we keep going back to these things, and we keep going back to the focus on unwanted. So there's two like key overall things when to look at emotions. That one, there's a separate self there, and the second is that there's this focus on what's unwanted. And so the emotion is guiding us back to what is wanted and to dropping in the separate self. And so, like, fear of embarrassment and all kinds of different kinds of fears can come about when we sorry, when we identify as being the mind. So, like, seeing some gory scene or seeing some fungus that's mimicking a bleeding tooth or whatever strange disease or something like that. When we're afraid of being wrong, this can really, really kill our creativity. And I was looking at my bookshelves a while ago, and this kind of hit me. I don't know at what point it hit me, but I realized that all the books there that like I sort of wanted to put them into categories of like, well, so now this person, now I know these things about like non-duality and awakening and stuff, and these people, they don't know these things. So these books are written from this kind of like human perspective, and might not be as good. So the only books that I can really, and it like starting to go down this, it's like, no, absolutely not. Everything that is written from inspiration, everything that is done from inspiration is for you. And you can intuit and you are attracting what that is. There really aren't separate authors to those books. And again, not encouraging plagiarism or anything, but you wrote those all for yourself. And using the Marie Kondo method of like seeing if something is worth, like, if something sparks joy, something's for you, it's meant for you, just simply like holding it and feeling the vibration of it can be incredibly insightful as to what you're actually meant to keep. And like the more I do this, the more I realize like I'll sometimes feel this rising feeling of something, and it doesn't, like, I have no use for it whatsoever, but then a little while later I will realize that I did have a perfect use for it, and it was perfect and it was there. And so we can bring intuition into our life, and it seems scary to kind of like let go of our, like, intuition essentially is, you know that you know, but you don't know how you know. And it can seem kind of scary to look at the world through this lens of like, I'm attracting different things for me. All of this is for me. And occasionally I get these impulses or I know these things and I don't know how I know these. But how interesting that we're afraid of breaking down the very boundary that's responsible for the fear in the first place. So, of course, the reason why that happens is because that fear is guidance. It's telling you that boundary isn't actually there. And to see that this is the case, and it's not even something very special, but it's so immediate and mundane in meditation, in how your senses actually work directly in the present moment, and that there is no past and future outside of thought. There's only now. It's only completely seamless and free. It it's like an invitation to Hogwarts. It's like you've lived in such dreary circumstances, and all of a sudden you realize what you are. And not that you're the chosen one in the wizard, not in some superhero way, but that you're the author of the freaking book. You can never be the hero. You can never be the villain. You can never be the victim. The victim doesn't need a hero because the author is all there is to it. And it's what makes roller coasters fun, and it's what makes all of this fun. I also want to add in that sometimes there are actual threats, and the best way, we can't actually avoid actual threats, but to trust in our intuition and to know that we're always called to what we want totally changes everything. That's where it is. And if we believe that the world is as we want to see it, and by want to see it, I don't mean the direct, this is a lack of resistance. This is going in the direction of what I want. This feels like inspiration, but I need to believe that these people are looking out for my best interests. So I'm going to put my head in the sand like an ostrich and not really see what's going on here. We don't have the motive to do that because we don't need to avoid seeing things anymore, because we know this is it a snake or a root? We know it's always a root, even when it's a poisonous snake and you have to turn back on the path and find another one. It's unconditional. And just like watching in the circus this past spring, when I was trying to figure out if the trapeze artists have harnesses or not. Do they or don't they? And realizing that source is an invisible safety harness. No matter what, no matter if something really awful happens to us. Because what are we most afraid of but not really living? And what is really living but being here right now and seeing the beauty and the impossibility in what we might call the mundane. And all of it melts away into magic.